You are not only just listening to women's issues, women's voices on KOPN, you are also viewing women's issues, women's voices. We are proud to bring you a special edition, a special community multimedia presentation of our feminist talk show on KOPN 89.5 FM. You can find more information about that show on kopn.org. We are in the Columbia Access Television studios right now with Jessica Neely, Jessica Lubert, and Nanette Warren, all guests of the Central Missouri Stop Human Trafficking Coalition. And we've come to bring some awareness to a serious subject that cannot be discussed enough, with how many years that it has gone on without being out there, with being those tough conversations that get swept under the rug. And I am very pleased to be here. To give a little bit further introduction, Nanette Ward is the chairwoman?
A founding member and board member and volunteer.
Okay. Of Central Missouri Stop Human Trafficking Coalition. And Jessica Lubert is a survivor of sex trafficking. And Jessica Neely is a former sex trafficker and rape survivor, and has spent some time in the pornography industry.
Yes.
It's a big intro. It's a big description.
Big resume.
Yeah. Do you guys want to say a little bit about yourselves?
Sure.
I, Jessica Lubert, I am 35. I'm a wife and a mother of two. I'm glad to be here tonight. I just have a little bit to bring to the table as far as my story. That's, we all have a story, and it's, my time to share it. And that was being trafficked from out of Columbia, Missouri. So I'm here tonight willing to do that and answer any questions and help to bring awareness and education to everybody.
So frequently, topics like this can feel like it happens elsewhere, especially being in the middle of the Midwest in Missouri. Columbia's a big town, but it's not Kansas City, it's not St. Louis. That's
Right.
where that stuff happens. Doesn't happen here. But we will soon find out that's not true.
Correct.
And Jessica Neely?
My name is Jessica Neely, and I come from an awesome upbringing in a preacher's home, private school, whatever. I don't have any family of my own. I've never been married, no kids. I am the product of pornography, where you're socially retarded and stunted. I never have had the opportunity to fall in love. And that story is yet to be told, and I can't wait for it. So it's just me and my clothing, and me on the road talking about the truth about the porn industry, about trafficking, about the mind of a trafficker that I took on. And then a year and a half of awesome full-time recovery that was focused on my PTSD and trauma from the sex industry. So I'm here to get the truth out, and I'm so grateful that for you having me and hosting this awareness, and for the people that are excited to be aware of what is really going on. Mm-hmm. So I thank all of you for being here, and for you, the host, thank you.
Yes.
It is nice to get a little bit of real life information of who you guys are, who you are now, and not just what we're going to be talking about. I am Jackie Castile. I'm not sure if I introduced myself. So,
hi, Jackie.
Yes. And we're pleased to have you on this special edition of Women's Issues, Women's Voices. Just in case human trafficking is bringing up visions or different definitions, I think that it's easy to think of it as something that you see in movies as an extreme. What is the definition of human trafficking, and what different forms might we see it in? Just to give us lay some groundwork before we get into these stories.
You know, the definition in legal statutes is not what I'm going to recite, but it comes down to what could be considered modern day slavery. Slavery's been around for a very long time, and actually there's references of slavery and biblical references of slavery as well. And it's just like that, where people are exploited, controlled by someone else. It can be men, women, boys, and girls who through force, fraud, or coercion are controlled in either forced labor or in the commercial sex industry. It is the second largest criminal industry in the world, the fastest growing criminal industry in the world. So it's actually traffickers who are responding to the demand of people wanting to purchase people for sex or rape, and also the demand of those of us who like to buy cheap products, and taking advantage of that demand and exploiting individuals, again, through force, fraud, or coercion. In that forced labor, it could be construction crew, it could be migrant workers in an agricultural farm, it could be door-to-door sales crew. We have young people going door-to-door sales to seemingly be selling magazines for making some money, but in fact they're working for the trafficker. It could be in the sex industry, it could be pornography, prostitution, other kinds of places where sex is used as something for sale. And it could also be family members who traffic their own children. So there's no need for movement of people anywhere, like in smuggling where there's movement of people across borders. It can happen right out of somebody's home. And certainly there's international involvement of trafficking as well. There are people who are foreign-born that are brought to the U.S., so the U.S. is a destination place for victims of trafficking, and again, to meet a demand of purchasers. But certainly within our own borders, within our own Columbia City limits, there are human beings who are being exploited or trafficked and for the benefit of someone else, sold either in forced labor or in commercial sex industry.
So if either of you have something to add to the definition, great. Otherwise, I'd like to go into Jessica Lubert's story of that in our backyard. We are in Columbia, Missouri, and talking about human trafficking here. What was your experience?
I personally was underage working in a club, and I had what I thought was a customer who came to my shift and talked with me very kindly. He befriended me. He became a man that I really, looked forward to seeing, not in a romantic way at all. A, because he was a great tipper, and B, he kind of was my friend. And so he came to see me at work for several months, and a while into it, he told me, Jessica, I'm sorry that I've kind of lied to you, but I'm an undercover model scout. And he's like, I've been watching and studying you and a couple other girls in Columbia, and he dropped some paperwork and literally like a lot of paperwork, and asked me if I would be interested in a lifetime experience modeling in Maui. And I said yes. Oh, yeah. Yes, I was very excited. I thought my life was just going to be, that big dream, that you're playing Barbies and you have this mansion and all that, and just to model, So, of course, I said yes. Didn't have any fear at all. Did not think anything was up at all. He and I. I'm kind of just giving you kind of a condensed version, if you will, but he and I were at the airport, and we checked into one plane, our first flight, and he sat next to me on the plane, and then he told me he was going to get up to use the restroom, and I didn't see him again on that flight at all. Okay, so we land in LA, and he was at the airport, and I had never been to an airport actually at this point in my life. I hadn't ever been, wasn't familiar with how it was working, anything. I was just kind of there, felt kind of weird, but still wasn't scared. This guy was a nice guy, and by the way, I'm sorry, I did not mention, I signed all that paperwork. I signed all of it completely, did not read into any of it at all. So that was, the 19-year-old rebellious little, girl that I was. So he was in the airport. So sorry, I wanted to throw that in there, but he was in the airport. I saw on our, we had paper tickets at that time, and there's a gate. We were already at our gate, the flight number and everything. Well, he came to me and he said he had been to the desk and came back and said our flight was canceled, that we were going to have a 4-hour layover in LA, and asked if I wanted to take a cab ride around the city to just check it out while we were there. And I said, sure, that's fine, but I physically saw that flight I don't think really got canceled. So I had some, I don't want to say complete red flags at that point, but I started to question at that point, but not in a danger type way. So so we took the cab ride around and saw LA. It was nothing really. At that point we boarded Hawaiian Airlines, and I did not see Sean. Oh yeah, I didn't say his name. His name's Sean, by the way. I did not see Sean at all, and when I got out, I went to the luggage area. It was actually, in Hawaii, it's inside, outside, so it's very simple for me, not knowing airports. So I went to my baggage, and I got it, and just, within minutes of just kind of collecting, looking around, not knowing where Sean was, a gentleman was right there, knew my name, my information, and he was to pick me up and take me to the resort. And I was like, okay, awesome. He took my bags and put them in the trunk. He got in the car, and I remember asking where Sean was, and he's like, oh, he's already there. Well, I knew then that something wasn't right. And in fact, I kind of thought that maybe something happened to Sean, but that was my thinking at that point. So we get to, it's a resort that's set up like little cottages. That's my best way to explain it, because I can only just see it, but not a hotel, It's like your own little apartment. And it was an outside check-in, of course, and so I got the keys, and it was just a few cottages up, and I had the keys, and I went to the door, and I turned the key. And there were two older men in front of me, and I quickly shut the door to turn around, still just thinking I was at the wrong door. And as I turned around, the car that my luggage was in took off, and my elbow was grabbed back into the room, and I was drugged immediately. Didn't remember too much of that specific afternoon or night, but I was there for 3 days, beaten and raped with these 3 men, taking their turns, and it was awful. It was terribly awful. I never looked at the paperwork, and I never saw Sean again. But the 2 men that said, no, we purchased you from Sean. Those words didn't kick into me, obviously, either. I thought maybe I was a prostitute. I got prostituted and didn't get money. I didn't know, but so the way that I got out, I guess, is really important. And I think there's only 1% that usually make it out alive, and I am that 1%, and I'm very proud of that. And it was thanks to the trash man. We have a big window, and I saw the man often, running trash, I guess, different type dumpsters, but I knew when he was coming, and 2 men were gone, Now, they could have been in another area or they could have been actually outside, I'm not sure, but there was one man in the living kitchenette area, and I saw the trash man coming, and I took to the door trying to undo all these really strange locks, and I got out the door and I attached myself to the trash man like one of those really creepy cats that you see like stuck on Halloween somewhere, and he was yelling, I was yelling. He thought I was assaulting him, I think, and he continued to push me and this dumpster into a huge brick all-in building, and I obviously was yelling, call 911, and he did just that, and the cops came right away, and I went into the custody of the police and felt safe and everything. However, they did have all my belongings, my identification, and they still have my identification to this day. They still have my social security number, addresses, all of those things. And but I don't live in fear with that anymore. I just can't do that because I live free today. I'm a survivor today. I'm not a victim today, and that's by the grace of God. But I survived.
I'm glad that you are here today to
Thank
talk
you.
with us. And survivor is a much better term.
Yes.
And
Thriver is even better.
Thriver,
Yes,
Thriver is
getting
even
beyond,
better. One of the details of your story, and this happened around what?
Oh, I was 19 years old. It was 15-ish years ago. I don't really know.
And I think that I think 2007 is iPhones and social media and internet really ramping up, and it's interesting to imagine, to go from human trafficking as being migrant workers, or thinking of it as being someone who's peddled at a truck stop in that scenario. It is eye-opening to hear of it just being, a 19-year-old who is interested in making that dream come true, that all those videos and TV and movies and magazines make you want to be that epitome of beauty in a magazine model ad.
And that's exactly what I envisioned. I came from a very ugly upbringing at certain times. And so when I got to those young teenage years, I didn't have a mother or a father that was
Keeping tabs
there,
on you.
right, exactly. And so, I was looking for any way out, any way to make my way in the world, and I thought I had done it.
Yeah. Seemed like freedom was on the other side of it.
Right,
and-
it did.
And 15 years later, traffickers are still using that lure of an opportunity for a
Yes,
modeling
they are.
job.
Yes,
And
they
it's
are.
even easier because you can put the word out through social media where the young people are tapped into and seeing like, oh gosh, I can sign up for this, and easy access to see what they look like and what their interests are, and just makes their job easier to lure young people in.
It scares me for the generations that are coming up because it seems so much easier for them to get involved than it was for me to get involved, because you're on all these social media sites and there's all these fake sites, and it fears me. So that's why I do speak, because I want them to know it's there.
Yeah, and while someone might look at one of those Craigslist ads and say,
Right.
"Oh,
Right.
yeah, sure. What are they trying to get out of this
Right.
modeling thing, or is this for real?" Like, I don't think I would have thought about the other side of that being a hotel room of men.
Right, I wouldn't have either.
Yeah,
Not in a million.
So, in your survival and your thriving, you're speaking out. You're doing this. Helping commemorate January as Human
Yes,
Trafficking
ma'am.
Awareness Month
Yes.
in Missouri and nationwide.
Yeah,
Yes.
so Missouri is Sex Trafficking Awareness Month,
Yes,
and
they're
for
first.
for national, at the national level, it's Human Trafficking Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month in January. Yes.
It's exciting.
So, with Jessica Luber's story, it's fun that I have to give the last name on each one, Jessica and Jessica. From your story and experiences, I want to get to it, but how Have you come across other survivors on in your activism that have similar stories? Is this how it usually happens, or is it just, again, such a wide, broad topic that
I personally think it's so broad and wide because do I go into telling you another situation of, where someone sent me to be prostituted and I didn't know that that's what was going to happen?
You can.
I mean, here in Columbia, again, was working and was asked to do a bachelor party and had been asked for a very long time to do that, and I said no for ever.
And you thought it was for dancing?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. No sex, no,
Yeah.
prostitution, nothing like that. And my brother was actually home on leave from the Marines, and I was scared to do this, but I was forced to do this with high risk at being beaten and things like that. And so finally, I opted to go ahead and go. But I called my brother and had he and his friends go with me. And I know what area it was in Columbia, a very nice, ritzy area, completely normal. Some of you may even live there. And pulled up to a house, very, very large house, and there were no cars, so I didn't feel like there was a party. So I had my brother go ahead and come up the driveway, and I went ahead and went to the door as he was standing to the left, and I knocked on the door, expecting maybe like an exciting party going on or whatever, and an old man in his robe, a silk robe, answered the door. And I said, "I'm sorry, I'm at the wrong house." I was very embarrassed. And he's like, "You're not at the wrong house." And he called me by, a name that I went by, and I literally freaked out at that. And what I had realized, what they were advertising at that club, they advertise over the DJ system. If you ever want personal bachelor parties, let us know. We do them all the time. They're always advertising them. So what they sent me to do was they sent me to this old man's house to do what he may with me, and I had no idea. I thought it was really a dancing party, and that's not what it was. So it turned out the whole time they were running prostitution just by the bachelor party, so to speak. So that's right here out of Columbia too.
Yeah. I would not have thought about that
Yeah.
either.
And I want to mention that there have been girls in high school, and I know from a survivor who was attending one of the schools and was hearing other young girls saying, "Well, I can't wait till I can make some money dancing at a club," referring to clubs in Columbia, because you can make quick money. They don't check your ID, they don't check how old you are, and they pay you in cash. And so we might think, well, kids should know better, or even young adults should know better, but not realizing the violence and the fear and the actual intent behind things that are advertised. And so it was really frightening to hear, a survivor of trafficking, but worry about other kids who were going to school who had no idea what she'd experienced, already been a victim of sex trafficking, and young girls thinking, well, I'm going to just make some money dancing, really
Yeah.
believing that that's what they're going to do, and sort of like looking forward to that as a way to make money. So
And
it's
that in
surprising.
itself opens that door for so many types of forms of trafficking.
And that's why it is great to have any opportunity we can to talk on radio, on television, on the internet, and share that awareness of what those lures look like, or what those dangerous situations are for those more impressionable
Yeah.
teens that might feel like it's a way to make money, get out of that spot, and not realize everything else that comes with it and what you can be opening yourself up for. So we're going to get into more discussion about human trafficking as a whole and different ways that this affects women, PTSD, and all of that stuff. But first, we're going to hear Jessica Neely's story.
Yay. This is my story.
We love you.
Wow. Yes, I was like, yes, I do recall some stories of showing up for photographers.
Yeah.
and they're like, I work for Vivid. I remember showing up for a photography where he's showing me a vodka commercial that and I was like, okay, this is the vodka where you shot the vodka commercial.
Right.
So your story
Exactly.
has jogged some like, okay,
Yep.
before my story got going,
Right.
I made some stupid choices before the ultimate stupid choices.
Exactly.
So it's definitely prevalent. Once again, I coming off that sentence of the fame and the fortune and Teen Magazine or 17 Magazine, I was raised where I had Brio from Focus on the Family. Brio was the teen magazine. I never saw like Cosmo. Oh my goodness, I never ever looked at Teen or 17 magazines. So I was raised with Brio, which teaches you how to respect yourself and all these, aspire for your education. So I was raised being the teacher's pet with the straight C's, because ADD, I had it before it was in style. And yeah, they came out with that in 1997. So no, I was very successful in school as being an activist. I knew if I couldn't excel with my grades, I was definitely going to excel with being a person that stands up for something. I was 5'8" in 3rd grade. You're going to see my little elementary school pictures with here's everybody and here's Jessica, bing, even taller than the teachers. So I never fit in. I never planned on fitting in. It wasn't an aspiration for me to chop off half my legs so that I could just waddle around like everybody else and be a little toy soldier. I've always stood out, and in high school, I started a spin-off of the American Cancer Society called B9, where high school students inspire the elementary school students, like, don't smoke, here's a pig's leg, ooh. And I was like, yay, I made, the kids cry and tell their parents. And so I went from high school onto a program called Master's Commission, where we traveled the United States, did high school assemblies for abstinence only, like, purity is everything, like, chap up your chastity belts, that's your worth right there, folks. So I was sailing that ship of purity, that my entire identity was between my legs, and I think that could have started me down a bad road. So I was abstinence only and being invited to speak about purity. I went from a church with a huge full-time staff at the church in Denver to a church plant, which is where a large church sponsors a smaller church, but they go, oops, we forgot your paycheck. Go get a job. And so I went and worked at the Stanley Hotel, the Dumb and Dumber, the Shining Hotel, and I had just worked a Sunday brunch with 1,200 people, exhausted. I'm the designated driver. I go out to my car in April, which is snow on the ground in Colorado, and somebody comes up behind me, whacks my head against the car, it hits the pavement, and he is just knocking my head on the ground, talking about how much he loves me, and I'm seeing my blood everywhere, and he is raping me. I have no idea what is going on. I've never seen porn. I don't know what sex looks like. Like, I have only watched Herbie Goes Bananas from the 1980s, and I don't know what's happening to me. And I know how to talk about chastity and purity, but I don't know what, it's like I don't know what the other half of the fight looks like. So after my dreams died on the pavement that night, I went straight in, I went into a spiral of having sex with everything that walks. I moved to Colorado Springs. The Assemblies of God had a counselor for me. He was my dad's best friend. Awkward. And after 45 minutes, he was like, thank you so much. You have a great day. And I was like, ah! I mean, I was peeing all over myself. I was stuttering. My hair was falling out. I mean, I could just be sitting there and just peeing everywhere. I was in shock. I was shaking. And this is not, I didn't have any books on PTSD in seminary. I didn't know what trauma was. The veterans from the 1994 and all those oh my gosh, my brain is freezing on the wars that were going on with the Bush era. Those guys were coming back. They were two different people that were, wives would send their husbands out one way, come back another, and PTSD was just now catching on with, okay, the military guys are going through this, but it wasn't something that was known that could happen during an act of violence and violent sex. So I was like so wrapped up into legalism, and I'm like, if this is the God I serve, deuces. Like, I am ready to hand in this card. All of my dreams, all of my goals had died that night, and I went full blown into having sex. I picked up an independent newspaper, which they have massage parlor ads in, and they had escort ads, and I was like, I'm going to be an escort. Even though I'm not that pretty, I'm going to do it anyway. Somebody will pay. And started with a non-full service agency, and then I started working in this other agency, and because the girls were educating me, like, you can work for many agencies. So I'm like, I'm a hustler. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I can do this myself. So I went to a swingers party. I was an independent escort. I met this guy who had a Lara Croft Tomb Raider site, and he was like, the model flaked out, you take over. So once again, I was back to having an audience. I wasn't a youth pastor with a youth group, but I had a fan base, and I could sit there, and I was afraid of the public, so it was awesome for me to make money, and I didn't have to go out in public, and I could just sit there. And the PTSD is isolation, because you know you're messed up, but you don't know how to say it, and nobody can relate to you. So you just put on more and more layers of isolation, which leads to substance abuse, another subject. But anyway, so I was living this double life. And this was back when every porn girl had their own website, like, yay, click, 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 and I could see all the activity going on. I was living these two different lives until 2008, when I was outed to my parents. And they were like, what does light have in common with darkness? And we don't want to have anything to do with you. And I was like many people who are the buyers of pornography or the buyers of prostitutes. I thought I could live my double life without anybody entering my bubble, and this burst my bubble. So I was like, I'm out of here. I took a suitcase to Los Angeles. Another escort had just moved from Hollywood, and she was in the Hollywood realm her entire life, trying to escape Hollywood, which I would do in 2011. And I went there, signed a porn contract, and I was quickly brought into, I had the avian publicist as my publicist. I started dating a porn producer within the first couple of months, so that was like my protection from being used up and spit out, which, if you read my blog, Read by Porn, it is all about how my mind went from stars, Jenna Jameson, to, oh my gosh, nobody's Jenna. And they're lying to all these girls that you're going to be the next Jenna. And let's be honest, no 5-year-old says I want to be Jenna. So, so anyway, I was protected into the porn industry. I saw all these things going around me. I knew that the 18 to 23-year-olds, and then there was like the Lisa Ann, way older than me, going on, and I was like stuck. And I was like, okay, I've already shot for all the companies. What do? Work for Playboy Radio. Okay, but keep cycling and keep feeding my porn producer boyfriend. Let's make more movies, order some more girls, and there was a dehumanization going on where I did not see anybody in Hollywood. I would go to Hollywood parties, and I noticed the hot girls would go, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh. And have no shame with any conversation, with turning their back in 0.3 seconds, with you didn't have anything to bring to me, you don't have anything to bring to me. And I noticed, I call Hollywood Skid Row with Bentleys. There is no humans left there. There's no respect for humanity. And I became one of them. I became that monster and that beast that could not be satisfied. My boyfriend was the monster and beast that could not be satisfied. And one night, after I couldn't bring tons of girls to the house, he had sex with 1 million people that day. I'd had sex with 1 million people that day. And I'm like, nobody's happy about this? Like, isn't everybody getting what they want? And after that night, he was like, you couldn't bring anybody home? Oh, I'm exhausted. I'm good. I'd booked a flight to Manhattan, and I was like, I cannot feed this addiction. I cannot feed this. I cannot keep, this is not happiness. I did not want to be a power porn couple. As I shared last night, there was, I was escorting in New York, Manhattan, and I was escorting in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, and everybody would be opening up their safes like they put out a code to each other, like this is not what happiness looks like. They'd open up their safes, invite many, they're like, bring all of your friends, all my porn little circle, take as much money as you want and come back tomorrow and do it all again. And it was just like, drink their drinks, do their drugs, they don't care, because everybody's aspiring to be them with this fame, fortune, power, and they are like, shoot my brains out. This is what the top looks like. Now you understand why I live in Oklahoma, in an Indian village. It's, the money did not buy happiness. Pornography did not buy happiness. Men who, oh my gosh, if you would follow my male porn actors' tweets, they're like ready to kill themselves every day. Every guy is like, you're my hero, how do I get into the porn industry? And the guys in pornography are like, how do I get out? How do I get out? Everybody on Twitter, you could tell when the meltdowns were happening, because it was like, oh my gosh, Tommy is having a meltdown. And this is not what happiness looks like. We are revealing the truth behind the porn industry, which now is my full-time job outside of working at Buffalo Wild Wings. So, yeah, let me shorten it up a little. Let's do fast forward. Moved to Colorado in 2011 because I just wanted to be normal. I was watching the Hallmark Channel thinking that's normal to you guys. So I thought I was going to be married at the end of the 90-minute episode. I thought I was going to be married in 2 weeks because that's how Hallmark tells me it's done. Where guys think that porn, you're going to get laid and you're going to get whatever done in 5 minutes. I was thinking the opposite of men. I was thinking the Hallmark was my version of porn of I'm going to get saved and rescued. And nobody is there to save and rescue. I spent over 300 emails in my Gmail account of help me, help me, help me, help me, help me, to major organizations of how do I get out of the sex industry. You Google who's at the top, they do not respond. In 2013 and 2011 to 13, nobody responded. They are on all the major TBN, CBN, little attention whores. They do not reply back to their hotlines. And I was like, how do I get out of this industry? And a sex toy reviewer introduced me to a porn girl who had got out of the industry, went to Refuge for Women in Lexington, Kentucky. I had sold, minor detail, I was looking at 30 years in federal prison for human trafficking. Yeah, when normal didn't work out, I started a brothel. I pinpointed girls on social media. I was looking for the booty shorts. I was looking for the low self-esteem. I was looking for the sports bras and the little selfies. I was looking for your low self-esteem daughters. I was so thirsty for low self-esteem. I was thirsty for the modeling agencies in Denver. Please, you're not a model. And I was going through the list, find you on Facebook, find you on Facebook, find you on Facebook. Figure and fitness competitions. Okay, you're laying the judges, you're laying old men to pay for your competitions. Find you on Facebook, find you on Facebook, find you on Facebook. I was pinpointing my victims very strategically, and I was your big sister. And that was my microphone that I just squeezed. So I was very strategic about how I took girls out, and it was social media, it was low self-esteems. I wasn't looking for drug addicts, where typically, yes, once you get into the sex industry, you have to self-medicate to get through that next client that's dripping sweat all over you, and there's no difference between that and rape except for the money on the counter. But no, I would pinpoint girls and very strategic about how I went about it. I was the big sister. I showed you a great lifestyle. I guaranteed you boobs in your first month. Boobs, fur coats, limousines, penthouses. I would take you, we'd drive from Denver. We did take planes, but okay, we went Denver, Wichita, Kansas City at the Country Club Plaza. Then we went to St. Louis. We hit all of the towns. We did not hit Columbia because I was like, wait, I look at the ads and see where it's busy, and I'm like, that's where I want to be. But I was very strategic. I did not play around. When I went onto your Facebook, I found out who all of your family is, and I would use that against you. You mess with me, I will take it out on your family. I will take it out on your family. I do have a great, awesome restraining order. That's a great story for another time. But there, I played rough. I almost feel like I'm talking about a different person because I can't believe how evil I was. So I went into recovery, left 5.5 months later. It was focused on my PTSD because trust you this, I could not sit in a crowd and around people. So I left 5.5 months later to go save the world. Do not leave recovery prematurely. The stage of which I am called to speak requires that I'm happy, healed, and whole. That I am whole, just keep in that incubator. I went back into recovery for another whole year of full-time recovery because what the message that has to go out, I have to be the toughest skin you ever saw. You thought I had to have tough skin for porn? I'm gonna have to have tough skin for me revealing the truth about the porn industry, to marriages, to children, to teenagers. I have got to get the truth out there so that another year sitting on a farm in Kentucky, it's done a body good. Well, just a minute. But it's going to be amazing what doors and favor that I see opening up in this 2016. It was all worth it. It was all worth it. I'll do anything to see the truth go out. So with that, bing.
We got a lot of stuff in that story.
Sound like an auctioneer, trying to get it out.
Well, and so going back in the story, when you did have somebody out you to your parents that you were involved in the porn industry, were you just totally cutting off contact with your parents, or did you have to keep up? Were you still in contact with them, but just trying to keep them in the dark about it?
Good question. This is my inner entrepreneur coming out. When I was working at the Stanley Hotel, I had, when I was in ministry, I was, sorry.
Your mic.
I am certainly blowing it up. When I was a youth pastor, I was missing holidays for the cause of Christ. And I have to go take care of everybody else for Christmas Eve and Christmas. I was a little martyr. So then I worked for the Stanley Hotel, and we're like, oh, let's do brunch for 1,200 people on Christmas, whatever. So I was so sick of missing Christmas and holidays and graduations because of ministry, because of the Stanley Hotel hospitality. I'm going to kick you out of here. I was so angry with missing so much time with my family that whenever I went into prostitution, I got to, as many women in prostitution they get to go to their kids' games and be a part of their kids' lives. I got to set my own schedule. I was there for my parents' birthdays and the births and all this stuff, and I was like living the gravy train that I could have my cake and eat it too and live two different lives. So I was in constant communication. We talk about their ministry, everything they had going on with their ministry. I can talk ministry all day long. And then when it was like, how's the hotel? I'm doing great. So, no, I loved my parents and my fake double life.
Constructed a face for them.
Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Man, processing it all is, it's a lot of information in there. And,
I've been able to hear both Jessicas share their story more than one occasion, but I just wanted to say I appreciated the comment you made about how that double life, speaking of the double life, that also the purchasers, the buyers
they
have.
They all live a double life. Every
so,
wedding ring. How many times a day?
So hopefully, people listening, it's easy to judge, but remember that this crime is on the fast track to growing to be the biggest criminal industry in the world, because there is a demand. There are purchasers, there are Johns, and there's a double life that goes on for them because they're not, we think of the trafficker, the bad guy, the criminal, by the way, traffickers don't have a singular profile.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
That's what I'm learning.
That's
right,
what I'm learning.
right. And so with purchasers also, we have to remind ourselves that they are those who are maybe at church with us, maybe the people that we work with, walk around the same grocery store that we shop at, maybe in the family of the house living next door to us. And so we have to remember there is a double life that goes on for most of those who are men who purchase women and girls for sex. And I want to say too, I said force, fraud, and coercion. If there is force, fraud, or coercion, then you have trafficking in labor and in the sex trafficking. But if the victim is under the age of 18, there does not have to be force, fraud, and coercion. It's simply a crime against that victim who is under the age of 18. So we talk about some of the young girls were saying that maybe choose to go and dance because they think they're going to make money and they think it's an okay, safe environment. Or the young girl who has an older boyfriend and lured in by thinking they're loved, made to believe they're told they're pretty and they weren't told at home or ever told before. And they become loyal to that older boyfriend, and then suddenly the older boyfriend says, well, you know, truck's broken down, don't have enough money, so if you just go do this, it'll only take you a little while, and here's some drugs or alcohol, and it won't be so hard. And basically pimping out their girlfriend, but they're thinking they're doing something out of love for their boyfriend. And so when in that kind of situation, they're not thinking they're being trafficked, they're not thinking they're a victim, but in fact, it is a victim of a sex crime.
Absolutely. In recovery, spending a year and a half in full-time recovery, I saw a lot of trafficked victims, and the majority were trafficked by their family, and a little percentage by the United States government. No surprise, right? And then there were those that were pimped, had their pimp, but they don't call him the pimp. They don't use the word trafficker. I was saying in the last 24 hours that it took maybe 2 or 3 months into full-time recovery. We are talking about from 9 a.m. until 7, 8 p.m. of Dr. Phil going on, that after 2 or 3 months, girls are using the word trafficked. They are actually, after 2 or 3 months of full-time recovery, they might come to terms with the words that they were exploited.
Right.
They do not see it. I didn't think that I was an exploiter. The first time the word trafficker came out of my mouth, it was like, whoa. I was like, did that just come out of my mouth?
The same thing I feel like can be said for rape, especially in like instances of date rape, and there's probably a lot of women out there that took them a while to realize that they were a victim of something rather than just, you know, brushing it off as behavior that's okay.
And there's that shame that comes with it,
Yeah.
like we should have known, or what did you do to bring it on, and all of that. It definitely flows over into that whole sex trafficking realm, and victims who are in fact victims but don't identify it first. They think they've done something, you know, to deserve it, or, you know, this was a choice they made, and not seeing how they were manipulated or coerced.
And this is the person that brings worth to their life, is the exploiter. Where the exploiter is like, you're bringing worth to my life, the girl is thinking, this is the only man that will love me after I've been with a million guys. This is the only man who will be my father, daddy figure, and they use that group, or I swear, daddy, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, that is their family system, and you're asking them to step away from all that they know. It's like pulling teeth. So when you do work with victims and they're on the fence and they're back and forth and you're pulling out your hair, it is because you are asking them to step into the scariest moment. They know how to see 12 clients a day, but they do not know how to go flip a burger or work at Buffalo Wild Wings. It has taken everything for me to go. I was like, God, I did not go through this to work at Taco Bell. And you know what? My first job was at Pizza Hut. And God met me in the dish pit. I would be bawling there going, God, don't leave me here. Like, don't bring me through all of this to scrub dishes. And you know what? It was through that humility that there's going to be glory, and there's going to come something beautiful from the dish pit of everybody's life. I hope that is my goal, is that everybody finds glory in the pit and out of the horrific things that happen to you to find redemption and forgiveness and making amends. It's beautiful.
So I feel like we've come around to solutions, and I think that's always something nice to focus on how things can be different, and how things can, once awareness happens and people are aware of human trafficking, and that it can go so far as being trafficking that's done by our own government. That those kind of details. What do we do to create a better world and create a better life for those involved? And you've undergone this recovery treatment from that the place in Kentucky that you've referenced. Is that it sounds like it was a positive experience?
Oh my goodness, I would not be the same. Yeah.
And you do you still work with do they have you come back? Do you work with them? Do you send people there?
Good question. In 2013, I loved to see. I was going to shrinks. I'd see clients and then take the money to my shrink. But in 2013, there were not a lot of sex houses or sex industry houses. Wow, that came out wrong. So right now, I was looking for credentials. There's no credentials, whatever. Anyway, they had only been open for 2 years. I've seen them grow from one house in Lexington to 3 houses, a PTSD house, get you ready for acclimated for work, and then a transition house. And now they're in like 5 different states in the last couple of years.
Yeah, excellent. Amazing.
Oh, so I'm part of them fundraising. There you go. I said all that to say.
Excellent.
There we go. I'm going to
She was getting to
Texas.
it.
Yes.
There can never be too many fundraisers out there
Yeah,
for
or-
all the
Right.
causes
Yes.
that definitely need funding.
Because there's definitely not enough safe houses for adults who want to recover from the industry, but also for children, also for boys who have been exploited, for men who've been exploited. There is really still a need for safe houses. But I think having programs and facilities, houses available, then people who are exploited can see that there's another option. And I think, there's not going to be enough. Yeah, there's hope, and there's not going to be enough. We're not going to be able to build enough houses. I think we'll find that there's a lot of people who we might be seeing as operating okay in everyday life, but in fact, there's a real need for their own kind of healing.
There's a lot of escorts that follow me on Facebook, and all I want them to do is just see hope every day that they look at my page. Hope, hope. Somebody makes it.
And we think of escorts, and I know you can confirm this, that we think of them as sort of a separate category versus women who are in prostitution, that they're the high end and they're just getting to dress up fancy to be the date of somebody rich. But there's a lot of exploitation that goes on there, and actually trafficking that goes on within the escort business as well. Just like you said, like how do I get out? How do I get away from this? And there's something called trauma bonding. I wanted to mention that makes it really difficult for people to leave. It's like you bond in an emotional way with the very person who's harming you, with the trafficker. And it's a way of survival. If you try to think of 24/7 being in a situation you're being exploited, you would pretty much lose your mind. But if you know that you're stuck there and you're going to be forced to do these things, whether it's forced labor or forced sex, how do I survive? And it's an emotional survival tactic to bond with the very person who's harming you, so that it de-escalates the stress. Like, well, he at least isn't beating me today, even if he maybe beat you yesterday. Or he's the one, like you said, telling me I'm pretty, or giving me that meal out to wherever once in a while. And so you justify so that you kind of normalize what's really a very
survive.
awful situation. Yes.
I mean, I think that being in a situation like that, finding any little bit, even if you would not think of it as a positive in a different situation, that in those crazy situations, your brain's got to hold on to something positive, I'm sure.
I know mine did.
Whether it be drugs, money, the exploiter, any of those. And we are almost out of time. It's like an hour goes by so fast.
I didn't see the countdown.
Oh, I saw it. That's why I was stuttering.
Darn.
Yes, and I do want to give an opportunity to the audience to ask a question. But before we get to that, I do believe that there's an underlying issue, both under the porn industry and trafficking, that you guys have touched on in different ways and different words, of that sex as a commodity, a woman's body as a commodity. Do you feel, now that you are ready for love, now that you are hoping that that happens for you, you being married and with 2 children, how do you feel that buying and selling of sex, that being as a commodity, how's it affected your relationships? And I know this might not be a short answer, and if we go over, we can fit some into the radio program, and it's okay. But I really feel like, from my own experience, I was shocked when I had a lover say to me, because I buy you dinner doesn't mean you have to give something else in exchange. Doesn't mean that you have to exchange or barter that sexual act with that dinner. And it was just an underlying thing that I didn't think about, that society had kind of gifted me, of that commodity.
Wow.
Did you get, how has it affected your relationships, or how have you prepared yourself for those
you go
relationships?
first.
Well,
in
I
that way?
mean, one thing, I mean, that could be kind of broad for me, but one thing that I will just touch on is that I am married and I do have children, and I have gone through the counseling, I've gone through the steps, I've done everything there is to do, but my specific problem was relating. I never related sex with love, and so going into my marriage, I carried that into my marriage, and so it took quite a bit for he and I to kind of redevelop. It was really me that actually needed redeveloping, but and I still struggle from times if I've got some things come up in my mind and I feel weird, then I disconnect, and I was certainly disconnected from him in a physical way that was not right, and I had God had to deal with me and work us through that. So that's a big deal.
Disconnected in a physical way. That's a very
Very
good way to put it.
Very much.
And you, Jessica?
And curtain. No, of course, I read tons of, once again, there was so many purity books thrown at me in recovery, and I was like, whoa. I'm definitely not going down, like, the extreme. I'm like, I can catch myself going legalistic in like 2 seconds, so I'm like,
You've experienced both sides.
right. I'm like, okay, I need to draw this back
here.
in. But I do know that I'm not really codependent when it comes to men, and I'm straight, but yeah, okay. So I know that when I do start dating, since I have that business mind, I'm going to be like, how are we a power couple? So I'm not going, I sit there and I'm on dating sites, but I've yet to pull the trigger. I'm being so honest with you. I've yet to pull the trigger. And I'm just like, deny. And I'm sitting there with my aunt telling her why I'm deleting every email. Like, okay, I'm deleting his because of this and this and this. I'm like so scared to pull the trigger, and I'm like, how can our lives meld? Because I'm only doing this once, and I've never dated. So if I see this red flag now, then I don't know. That story, when people say Jessica write a book and about my past, I have a past story, but there is so much that I haven't even experienced. I've not experienced that date where I go out and I'm not expected to put out.
Yeah.
In Kansas City, I did go out and I put it, and then I probably deleted it. I went out with a cancer patient who had a month to live, and he didn't tell me that until I got there, and I could tell. I'm like, that's not the guy in the photo. So then I haven't went out since. That was when I was in Kansas City. So I'm just scared. I am so honestly. I'm scared to death, and because the guy who was about to die of cancer, he's asking me like, the concerts and opera and all these different things, and it's just hitting me. I'm like, I've never been to an event not paid. So
That does seem like the book to write.
I'm like,
the book to write. My
like football games. Okay,
dating
they're my
life.
clients. So yeah, no, it's a whole new. it's a whole new
Avenue,
season.
yeah.
Yep.
I wish you luck, and I'm so
I'm
thankful.
so scared.
I'm so thankful for this conversation. I'm glad that we can raise a little bit more awareness about human trafficking
Oh,
during
yes.
Yes, amen.
Human Trafficking Awareness Month in January. Thank you, Jessica Neely. Thank you, Jessica Luber.
You're welcome.
Survivors and thrivers. And thank you, Nanette, for always bringing to my attention incredible speakers and women with incredible stories.
Can you share the coalition information with people
Yes.
listening?
Yes.
So our website, www.stophumantraffickingmo.com. We have an email, help@stophumantraffickingmo.com. And we have a toll-free number, 866-590-5959. And what we encourage is that people who want education, want that awareness, want to talk about having a speaker, whether it's young teens or church group or professional group, we want to continue that education. Please reach out to us.
Yes, please.
And I bet that if you send an email to that or call that number, you will get a response. And it
You'll
will
get
be
me.